On June 8, 1998, at approximately 6:30 a.m. West African time, a phone call from Aso Rock Presidential Villa in Abuja set off a chain of events that would expose the largest theft of public funds in African history. The caller, speaking in hushed tones to a Swiss banking executive in Geneva, utters just 7 words. The general is dead. Execute Protocol 7. Within minutes, encrypted messages are sent to banks in Switzerland, Luxembourg, Liechtenstein, and the Channel Islands. Accountant managers who had never met their mysterious Nigerian clients begin executing prearranged instructions, consolidating funds, destroying documents, and preparing to move $4.3 billion before anyone could freeze the account. What these bankers didn't know was that their phones were already being tapped by investigators who had spent 3 years trying to crack down what they called the Nigerian Enigma. At the very same time, at the World Bank headquarters in Washington, D.C., a small team of forensic accountants who had been tracking suspicious money flows from Nigeria's central bank noticed something extraordinary. In the past 6 hours, more money had left Nigeria's financial system than the country's entire education budget for a decade. The movement was so massive that it temporarily affected currency exchange rates across West Africa. But the most remarkable part of this story isn't just the staggering amount stolen, estimated between $3 and $5 billion. It's how a military dictator managed to loot an entire nation while maintaining complete control. How he built a financial network so complex that 25 years later, investigators are still finding hidden accounts, and how his death triggered a financial manhunt across 5 continents that would fundamentally change how the world tracks illicit wealth. November 17, 1993, Lagos, Nigeria. General Sani Abacha, dressed in his characteristic dark sunglasses and military fatigues, addresses the nation on state television.
The following decisions come into immediate effect. The interim national government is hereby dissolved. The national and state assemblies are also dissolved. The state executive councils are dissolved.
Torn apart by political chaos. What Nigerians watching their television sets didn't know was that 3 hours before this broadcast, Abacha had already sent his first instruction to the Central Bank of Nigeria: create 15 new special security accounts for classified military operations. These accounts, that investigators would later discover, was that they were the foundation of the most sophisticated state looting operation ever documented. Unlike typical dictators who simply raided the treasury, Abacha created what forensic accountants called a parallel financial system, a mirror image of Nigeria's legitimate economy that existed solely to steal from it. The blueprint was genius in its simplicity. First, Abacha would invent a security threat, a coup plot, a rebel movement, or foreign infiltration. Then, it would authorize massive security spending to counter this imaginary threat. The money would be withdrawn from the central bank in cash, sometimes in trucks, carrying up to $30 million in physical currency. But instead of funding security operations, the cash would be flown out of Nigeria on military aircraft, landing at friendly airports where questions weren't asked. A former central bank employee who fled Nigeria in 1996 and whose identity remains protected later told investigators, "We would receive a call by 2 a.m. and by 3 a.m. we were at the bank counting money. By 6 a.m. armored vehicles would arrive. We were told that it was for national security. Anyone who asked questions didn't come back to work." While Abacha was building his theft mechanism in Nigeria, 3,700 miles away in Zurich, a different operation was underway. In January 1994, a man calling himself Sani Mohammed walked into a private banking division of Credit Suisse carrying a diplomatic passport and a letter of introduction from the Nigerian Ministry of Defense. Sani Mohammed was actually Abacha's eldest son, Mohamed Abacha, then just 25 years old. Within an hour, he had opened 7 accounts with an initial deposit of $2 million in cash. The bank, following Swiss banking protocols of the era, didn't ask where the money came from. They didn't need to. Diplomatic immunity covered a multitude of sins. Over the next 4 years, these accounts would receive 47 deposits, totaling $684 million. Each deposit followed the same pattern. Cash would arrive via diplomatic pouch, be counted in a private room, and deposited into accounts with names like Nabiru Holdings and Doraville Properties, shell companies registered in the British Virgin Islands that existed only on paper. But Mohamed Abacha wasn't working alone. Court documents later revealed a network of 140 bank accounts spread across 11 countries, managed by Abacha's wife, Miriam, his sons, Ibrahim and Abba, his daughter, Gumsu, and a inner circle of associates who would become fabulously wealthy for their silence. The Swiss banks weren't passive participants. Internal memos discovered during investigations showed that bank executives knew their client was Nigeria's head of state, despite the fake names. One memo from the Credit Suisse executive, dated March 1995, states, "The client's official position requires maximum discretion. Recommend upgrading to platinum tier service immediately." By 1995, Abacha had refined his theft methods beyond simple cash withdrawals. Nigeria, as Africa's largest oil producer, generated billions in petroleum revenue. Abacha discovered he didn't need to steal this money. He could simply redirect it before it ever reached Nigeria's accounts. The scheme worked like this. Nigeria would sell oil to international buyers through official contracts, but payment instructions would be secretly altered. Instead of paying the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation, buyers would be told to deposit funds into Central Bank of Nigeria's accounts that were actually controlled by Abacha's associates. Foreign oil companies, believing they were following official instructions, unwittingly participated in the theft. One French oil executive later testified, "The payment instructions came on official letterhead, with official stamps, through official channels. We had no reason to question them." Between 1995 and 1998, investigators tracked $2.2 billion in oil revenues that never reached Nigeria. The money flowed through a deliberately confusing web of transactions, from a Bermuda account to Luxembourg, split between 3 Austrian banks, consolidated in Jersey, and finally distributed to accounts in Switzerland, France, and Lebanon. But Abacha's most audacious petroleum theft involved something called lifting rights, the authorization to extract oil from Nigeria's reserves. It would grant these rights to shell companies he secretly owned, which would then sell them to legitimate oil companies at massive profits. One such transaction, involving 20 million barrels of crude oil, netted Abacha's family $282 million in pure profit, money that belongs to the Nigerian people. On April 15, 1996, the Bank of England received an unusual request from the Central Bank of Nigeria. The letter, bearing all the correct signatures and security codes, requested the urgent transfer of $1.4 billion from Nigeria's foreign reserves to a special intervention account in Switzerland to stabilize the naira against currency speculators. The request was unusual enough that a junior analyst at the Bank of England flagged it for a review. What he noticed wasn't any obvious forgery. The letter was genuine, sent by actual central bank officials. What concerned him was the destination account. It was registered to a company incorporated just 3 days earlier. The Bank of England's investigators made a call to their counterparts at Nigeria's central bank, trying to verify the transaction. The official who answered confirmed the transfer was legitimate and urgent. What the British didn't know was that this official was one of the only 3 people at the central bank who knew the truth, and he had already received $4 million to ensure his cooperation. The transfer was approved. Within 72 hours, the $1.4 billion had been split between 31 different accounts across Europe. By the time anyone realized what had happened, the money had vanished into what investigators called the black hole of private banking. While Western banks were processing Abacha's stolen billions, his family was living a life of unimaginable luxury. Mohamed Abacha, the eldest son, purchased a $12 million mansion in Switzerland, an estate worth $8 million in France, and a fleet of 39 luxury cars, including 7 Ferraris, all before his 28th birthday. But the family's spending went beyond personal luxuries. They were building a business empire with stolen funds. Court documents reveal that the purchase of a $430 million stake in a French telecommunications company, a $287 million investigation in Lebanese real estate, the acquisition of 3 banks in West Africa, a $190 million shopping complex in Dubai, and controlled interest in 14 Nigerian companies spanning oil services to construction. Miriam Abacha, the dictator's wife, managed what investigators call the social wing of the operation. She would host elaborate parties for international diplomats and business leaders, distributing gifts worth millions, Rolex watches, diamond necklaces, even cars, to ensure loyalty and silence. One ambassador recalled receiving a gift bag after a dinner party that contained $200,000 in cash and a deed to a London apartment. The children were trained in the family business from young. Ibrahim Abacha, at age 23, was managing shell companies with combined assets of $800 million. Gomso, the only daughter, controlled charity organizations that were actually money laundering fronts, moving $400 million under the guise of humanitarian aid. As Abacha's wealth grew, so did his paranoia. Anyone who questioned missing government funds or suspicious transactions faced swift consequences. The stories of those who opposed him read like a catalogue of horrors, though the full details of what happened to regime opponents are too disturbing for this platform. Ken Saro-Wiwa, the renowned writer and activist who publicly questioned where Nigeria's oil money was going, was arrested on fabricated charges and executed in November 1995, despite international pleas for clemency. His real crime wasn't the trumped-up charges, it was discovering documents showing $210 million in missing oil revenues. Kudirat Abiola, wife of the imprisoned president-elect, was investigating Abacha's foreign account when she was assassinated in June 1996. Her notebooks, discovered after Abacha's death, contained bank account numbers in Switzerland that matched accounts later frozen by authorities. The pattern was clear. Those who followed the money disappeared. A special unit within Nigeria's State Security Service, known as the Strike Force, was tasked with eliminating threats to what they called national financial security, a euphemism for protecting Abacha's theft. In March 1997, something unexpected happened. Swiss banker named Rudolf Weiss, working at a small private bank in Geneva, noticed unusual activity in accounts belonging to Nigerian nationals. The amount was staggering, single transfers of $50 million or more. But what caught his attention was the pattern. The money would arrive, sit for exactly 72 hours, then move to another bank, then another, in what looked like a deliberate laundering. Weiss did something that could have ended his career in Swiss banking. He reported it to the authorities. His report landed on the desk of Carla Del Ponte, Switzerland Attorney General, who had been building cases against international money laundering networks. Del Ponte's team began what they codenamed Operation Abacha, though at the time, they didn't know that the Nigerian dictator was directly involved. They thought they were tracking drug money or arms dealing, but what they discovered was far larger. By monitoring the reported accounts, investigators identified a network of 130 Swiss bank accounts containing $2.2 billion. all linked through a complex ownership structure. To the same source, the investigation revealed something Swiss banks had desperately tried to hide. They hadn't just accepted Abacha's money, they had actively helped launder it. Internal bank documents showed that the executives had already created fake documentation to disguise the source of the funds, structured transactions to avoid reporting requirements, provided Abacha's family with coded communication systems, destroyed records when investigators got close. One leaked memo from a UBS executive stated, "The Nigerian relationship is our most profitable, maintained at all costs. Legal risk, manageable with proper structure." June 8, 1998, 3:47 a.m. General Sani Abacha dies suddenly at the presidential villa. The official cause was listed as a heart attack, though persistent rumors suggested poison. His death was kept secret for 3 hours, while his family and inner circle executed a plan they had rehearsed: the complete evacuation of evidence and wealth. Mohamed Abacha, who was in Geneva when his father died, immediately began moving money. Swiss banking records shows that between 4 a.m. and 9 a.m. on June 8, $863 million was transferred from 23 accounts. The transfers were so large and so rapid that they triggered automatic alerts at SWIFT, the international banking network. In Abuja, trucks arrived at the presidential villa before dawn. Witnesses reported seeing boxes of documents being loaded and burned. One former security guard testified, "We were burning paper for 3 days. The smoke was so thick you couldn't see across the compound." But the family made a crucial mistake. In their haste to move physical assets, they used a Nigerian Air Force cargo plane to transport 127 boxes to Saudi Arabia. The flight plan was logged, the cargo manifest was filed, and when investigators later checked, they discovered those boxes contained $413 million in cash and bonds. Within days of Abacha's death, a remarkable collaboration began. Nigeria's new government, led by Salami Abubakar, took the unprecedented step of asking for international help to help recover stolen funds. For the first time, an African nation admitted its former leader was a thief and wanted the money back. The investigation that followed involved 287 investigators from 23 countries, 1,940 bank accounts examined, 439 properties identified, 189 shell companies traced, 64 private jets and yachts located. The Swiss government froze $684 million within 48 hours of receiving Nigeria's request, the fastest asset freeze in Swiss banking history. Luxembourg froze $322 million. Liechtenstein, notorious for banking secrecy, froze $180 million. Even tiny Jersey froze $149 million linked to Abacha's properties, all in dollars. But for every account frozen, investigators discovered 2 more. The money trail led to unexpected places: a casino in Monaco that Abacha secretly owned, a diamond mine in Sierra Leone, a pharmaceutical company in India, even a professional soccer team in Belgium. On September 20th, 1998, Mohamed Abacha was arrested at Lagos Airport, attempting to board a flight to Saudi Arabia. In his luggage, authorities found $2.8 million in cash and documents for 39 bank accounts. His arrest was meant to be secret, but within hours, banks in 6 countries reported unusual activity in Abacha's linked accounts. Someone was running the network. The investigation revealed that even after Abacha's death, his family maintained a network of corrupt officials throughout Nigerian government. These moles were providing real-time intelligence about the investigation, allowing the family to move money ahead of freezing orders. Miriam Abacha was placed under house arrest, but continued to coordinate the family's financial defense. Intercepted phone calls revealed that she was negotiating with former military officials, offering them percentages of hidden accounts in exchange for political protection. One recorded conversation captured us saying, "The money belongs to Nigeria, yes, but who is Nigeria? We served the nation. This is our pension." Getting the money back proved even harder than finding it. Swiss banks, despite freezing their account, argued they couldn't release funds without court orders. Those court cases would take years, with Abacha's family hiring the world's most expensive lawyers to fight repatriation. The legal arguments were complex. The family claimed the money was legitimate. Payments for security consulting, oil trading profits, and real estate investment. They produced documents later proven forged, showing business deals dating back to 1970s. But prosecutors had a powerful weapon: the testimony of Abacha's own bankers. Under immunity agreements, several Swiss banking executives admitted to knowing the funds were stolen. One testified, "When someone deposits $100 million in cash carried in diplomatic pouches, you don't need to be a detective to know that something is wrong." The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. In 2000, investigators discovered that Abacha had been paranoid enough to secretly record his own associates. Hidden in a Swiss safety deposit box were 314 hours of recordings where Abacha and his inner circle discussed their theft in detail, including which officials to bribe and how to structure the laundering. On one recording, Abacha himself is heard saying, "The Western banks are our partners. They take their percentage and ask no questions. The Swiss are the best. They would bank for the devil if he paid their fees." In 2002, Switzerland made history by returning $322 million to Nigeria, the first major repatriation of stolen assets from an African dictator. The ceremony in Abuja was meant to symbolize a new era of international cooperation against corruption. But the celebration was premature. By 2023, 25 years after Abacha's death, only $3.2 billion of the estimated $5 billion stolen had been returned. The rest remains hidden, protected by legal challenges from the Abacha's family, jurisdictional disputes between countries, bank secrecy law that still protects criminals, and corruption within Nigeria's recovery efforts. The return money itself became controversial. Investigations revealed that some officials involved in recovering Abacha's loot were stealing portions for themselves. One recovery agent was caught diverting $4 million in repatriated funds to his own personal account. A World Bank audit found that of the first $500 million returned to Nigeria, only $328 million could be properly accounted for. The rest had vanished into the same corrupt system that had enabled Abacha's theft in the first place. In 2019, 21 years after Abacha's death, investigators made a shocking discovery. A routine audit of a Jersey investment fund revealed a portfolio worth $431 million that traced back to Abacha. The fund had been operating openly, generating returns that were being paid to anonymous beneficiaries. This discovery triggered a new wave of investigations that revealed the true sophistication of Abacha's network. The stolen money hadn't just been hidden, it had been invested and was growing. Investigators found real estate in Dubai worth $800 million purchased with Abacha's funds, a telecommunications company in Lebanon valued at $1.2 billion, mining concessions in 6 African countries generating $50 million annually, a network of 47 functioning companies employing thousands of people. The most disturbing revelation was that Abacha's family was still receiving income from these investments. Despite arrest, asset freezes, and international sanctions, they were collecting an estimated $100 million per year from businesses built with stolen money. In 2020, investigators uncovered what they called Generation 3, Abacha's grandchildren, educated at Western universities, were now managing portions of the hidden wealth. Using complex trust structures and cryptocurrency, they had modernized the family's money laundering operations for the digital age. Today, as you watch this video, Approximately $1.8 billion of Abacha's stolen wealth remains missing. It sits in bank accounts, real estate, businesses, and investment funds scattered across the globe. The investigators who spent their careers hunting this money have mostly retired, replaced by younger officials who see Abacha as history and not an active case. In Nigeria, the impact of Abacha's theft is still visible. The $5 billion he stole could have built 50 universities, 200 hospitals, or provided clean water to 20 million people. Instead, it enriched a small family and the Western banks that helped them. Mohammed Abacha, after serving 2 years in Nigerian prison, was released and is now a prominent businessman and politician. He drives through the same streets where people lack basic services, in luxury cars bought with their stolen money. Miriam Abacha still lives in Nigeria, protected by political connection and wealth. In a 2019 interview, she claimed her husband served Nigeria faithfully and all allegations of theft were Western propaganda. The interviewer didn't ask about the $2.2 billion frozen in Swiss accounts bearing her name. The Swiss banks that facilitated Abacha's theft paid fines totaling $95 million, less than 2% of what they helped steal. No banking executive went to prison. Most weren't even fired. The message was clear. If you help dictators loot their countries, their worst consequence is a small fine. The truth is, Abacha wasn't caught. He died in power, wealthy beyond imagination. His family wasn't punished. They're still rich. The banks weren't reformed. They're still laundering money for dictators. The only thing that changed was what we learned how it's done. And maybe that knowledge, that understanding of how national wealth is stolen and hidden, is the first step towards stopping it from happening again. Thank you for watching.